Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with a very special guest, my dad. Yay, Dad! So I asked him to be in this video with me because there's been a lot of recent events within the Black community. So a lot of deaths by the hands of the police of Black men and women. And there has been an uprising on social media. People are speaking out. There are protests. It's just a lot, and it's definitely time. It's been time. So I just wanted to get my dad's opinion about everything, and for him to share a little bit of his story and his experiences as a Black man in America. Just to shed some light on his experiences. I really hope you guys enjoy this video and really listen to what he has to say, and we'll just hop right into it.
Well, first, what I wanted to say was I want to congratulate you.
Oh,
because on your channel and everything, and I'm really proud of what you're doing. You've come a long way, and you've finally decided to step out in something that you really want to do. So that's what I first want to do, is congratulate you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, so we're finally here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing I just wanted to get is just your quick thoughts on everything that's been going on, everything that's been coming to light. Just what are your overall feelings? You don't have to get too specific, but just how are you feeling about everything that's been happening, the protests?
Well, like I really, feel that it's kind of a good thing that this is coming to light right now, because it's been really kind of, hidden. People, it hasn't been brought to light. So I think the fact that we're protesting, it's kind of making people more aware of what's going on, and it's getting them more involved, which is a good thing. I don't like the fact that Black men and Black people are getting shot and killed, but that's been happening for years. And because of cameras and social media and things, I think it gets more attention now. So that's a good thing. I grew up in the 70s, and we've been mistreated as a Black person, growing up. I've been mistreated for years, and I've experienced all kind of racial prejudice. So the fact that now that it's like I said before, like the attention is there, maybe things will get done. I mean, we've been here before in the 60s. Every time there's a big uprising, we gain a little ground, but usually it's never enough.
Yeah, we never go all the way. Yeah.
So.
All right. And I do just have a few questions written down that I wanted to make sure that I asked him. And he has his notes there because, he's getting old, so don't want to forget. But, Black don't crack, so he looked young, so that's all that matters. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, what does it mean to be a Black man, a Black husband, and a Black father in America? What does that mean to you?
Well, for me, growing up, I never, the way my grandparents actually raised me, so I didn't really identify. This may sound strange, but I didn't identify as being Black. I identified just as being a person. And now as I grow up, I'm still identify as a man. So it's always been a struggle, just being growing up, being a man, trying to provide for my family and my wife and everything. And I never really had a role model because I didn't know my father growing up. So I had to kind of learn everything on my own. So I've other than a lot of the prejudices and stuff that's come against me, I try to overcome it. My grandparents, they sheltered us from a lot of it, but at the same time, they kind of placed us into it, because I went to an all-white junior high school, and I experienced really my first real prejudice there. But, I was kind of sheltered in a way from a lot of the black experience, because she didn't let us go out. We didn't do too much of anything, and I didn't get involved in any kind of gangs and stuff. So it was kind of interesting, but it helped me as I got older to be a better parent, because I was always in a teaching mode, I felt, and hopefully you kind of felt that you were learning things. And I try to take some of the experiences that I grew up with and pass them on to you. So I don't know if that answers it, but
I mean, I feel like everyone has their own experience. There are black people who grew up in all white neighborhoods who don't really know what. And well, this is another thing. What is the black experience?
Right.
We're people. We're living our daily lives. So does the black experience mean that you're in the hood and you're in poverty? Like, is that what being black is, or is what is a black experience? Because how you said you didn't really see being black wasn't your first thought when you thought about yourself, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you were just who you were, and you grew up in a different space. And I feel like all black people have different experiences, so just because you didn't have this one experience, that doesn't mean that you're not black anymore, or that you didn't have the right black experience. You had your experience, and you still face certain prejudices and stuff that comes along with being black, but you didn't have maybe the stereotypical black experience, or whatever that may be.
Yeah, because a lot of times people look at black people, and if you don't talk a certain way, they think you're not black enough, or if you don't act a certain way. Like, I grew up, I didn't know a lot of, I was listening to different music. I didn't learn a lot of the slangs, and sometimes if I went around some of my neighborhood people, I kind of stood out because I couldn't fit in as well, but I still was treated the same amongst the majority of the world when they looked at me, because they still see black skin.
Yeah.
So, like you say, what is that black experience? What is being black?
Yeah. That's been my question of the year, because I don't know, I just think people get called out if they're not doing this or doing that, and it's like, you're not black if you're not doing this, or you're not black if you never did this. But everyone is different. Everyone's lives are completely different. So to say that because I speak a certain way or like a certain kind of music, then I'm not black, but yet the world is still prejudiced towards me, that's not fair to the person. That's not fair to you growing up around your friends, or any black man or any black woman growing up, and your friends are saying that you're not black because you're not ghetto, you're not ratchet, and that needs to change. Black needs to stop being associated with ghetto and ratchet and slang and rap music. We are far more than that. So,
and I have an interesting experience, because I went to elementary school in my neighborhood, which is South Central Los Angeles. Then I was bused to West LA for junior high school, which is, was majority all white. There was probably about 20 black people that were there in the whole school. And that's where I really experienced my first major prejudice. I was called out. I fought a lot in middle school. Then I came back for high school to a all black school, which was a total difference. And then I was considered, they were calling me Oreo because I spoke different at that time. I spoke a lot more, and that followed me into college, But with college, because it's a little more diverse, it was, a little different. But it was just an interesting transition.
All right, so the next thing I kind of want to move into is you just sharing a little bit about your experiences with the police in the past. So, did you have any encounters with the police growing up? What was that like for you? What was your thoughts? What were you thinking? So just share with us about that.
Well, as a black man, of course, I've had lots of experience with the police. And, I think any black man who says that they haven't really encountered the police, probably either they live somewhere where there's no police or there's fine. But anyway, I can remember far back when I was I was a teenager, maybe 15, 16. I was in the LAPD police band, and I was part of the color guard on the rifle team. And we used to have to get picked up from a bus. They would come pick us up in the neighborhood, and they had different bus stops along the way. And we would always, it was like at a gas station, our bus stop was. So it was probably about 6 or 7 of us that would get picked up at that stop. Invariably, I'd probably say maybe, I was in the band for about 3 years. And invariably, probably, maybe 6 or 7 times while we were waiting for the bus, the police would come, harass us, want to know what we're doing, A couple of times they had us sitting on the ground and stuff. And
you guys are playing for them.
And we tell them, we're in the, they didn't want to believe us, but just because we were a group of black guys, they would always harass us. And so that was always an experience to what, I couldn't get it.
You weren't doing anything wrong.
And I'm working for, I'm doing stuff for the community and for them, and we get harassed. But that followed me into, to my times when I'm driving, and I'm constantly, I can't even count how many times I've gotten stopped in the car, for just driving, and they pull me over and they say, oh, it was always a dumb reason that they stopped us, and that's pretty much the typical thing. I remember one time when you and I were together, and we were at the we were spending the night for the Rose Parade.
Oh yeah. And
we were kind of hanging out, and we went to we were going over to a store, a little shop or something.
We went to the bathroom. At Carl's Jr. or something.
And all of a sudden the police, pulled me out and handcuffed me, and they're not telling me what's going on and everything. And I think you walk out and see me in handcuffs. I know that probably was,
I'll talk about that in a second. Yeah.
But it's and then it's always the same thing. Oh, you match the description, and it's but they don't ever really apologize.
Right. Of course not.
It's just and and then there's been hundreds of other times when I lived in San Diego.
Real quick, I just want to about that one experience, because that's one that I was there for and experienced, and I was a bit younger then. I was maybe in my early teens at that time, and I had never seen anything like that before. And so me and my god sister, we had went in to use the bathroom, and he was waiting for us outside, and I'm tearing up, but we came out and he's in handcuffs, and I'm just what is happening? This is my dad. He's a good person. He didn't do anything. And he's I don't know what's happening. And and this was before all the videos were shared and stuff. Before, at least what I saw, because I was younger back then. So I didn't really see that. So just knowing now that that could have easily went another way. You could have easily been gone because of that, a misunderstanding, which is what majority of these killings are now. Now it just scares me. Obviously then I was horrified, but now it's just wow, I feel like I got lucky in that moment because nothing happened to you. And, the lady was oh no, it wasn't him that did it. I guess somebody robbed her or something, but like,
the police they react,
yeah,
and then they don't. They react first, and then they find out. They try to get the information later. So I think it's very important for black men, especially, and women. But you should know your rights and know how to handle the police, because like any misunderstanding or saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing can cost you your life.
Yeah. Which is
yeah.
should not be the case. I saw this post on Instagram. It's like, even guilty people aren't supposed to die at the hands of the police. So like when people say like, oh, he should have complied, like, oh, he did this in his past, like that does not justify someone dying. Even if somebody did rob a store, that doesn't mean they should die. They can get arrested and go to jail and whatever, but that doesn't mean they have to die because they're guilty.
Right, because the police, no one made the police the judge and the jury.
Right.
And the executioner. So it's like, that everyone's entitled to due process, and that's the Constitution. So.
But going back, you were talking about San Diego.
Yeah,
out there.
San Diego was interesting because they had a totally different set of police, and they were very racist in San Diego at the time when I was going there. So I, literally had gotten, what they would do in San Diego a lot was they would try to ticket black people a lot, because they know, especially young black men, they can't afford to maybe pay their tickets or whatever, and then you end up getting a failure to appear or failure to pay. Now you have a warrant, and so they were checking everybody. They looked for warrants, and you were constantly getting stopped, handcuffed, and just for no reason. But obviously I made it through, and I've learned a lot. I learned how to deal with the police. You have to deal with them a certain way. I work in media. So I worked with the news for a bit of a few years, and I went on a ride along, and I learned a lot by being on that ride along, because even though I'm black, I was with a producer that was white. The cops were white. They kind of didn't see my color in their conversation, so they kind of say basically what they look for, how they profile people. And I'm thinking to myself, that's pretty racist.
Like, I've experienced that too.
But it's like, if they see a car and it's like a certain model that's older, that's the reason. Especially if it's got it's got 4 heads, they call it. It's grounds for getting pulled over. So, it's an interesting thing.
There was one story that you told me recently that I never knew about, that I just want you to kind of tell a little bit, when you said that you got arrested for selling drugs. Remember? When we were watching the documentary, The 13, and you said...
Oh!
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was in the park, and the police came, and they were, I guess, narcotics people. I guess there was a lot. This is in the valley. When I used to live in the valley, there was a park, and they said I guess there was a lot of drug activity or whatever. So I'm there, but I'm there because there's my roommate, and they play basketball there. So that's why I'm there. But I was over near the restroom, and they came and they started asking me questions. They were undercover, and I wasn't doing anything. But then they decided that they thought I was a drug dealer, and they actually, when I say arrested, they didn't actually take me in, but they handcuffed me, and they ran all their things or whatever, and then they tried to say that I was selling drugs, and they gave me a citation. I had to go to court. You know, and they didn't have any kind of evidence,
Mm-hmm.
but they made me go through all this stuff. And when I went to court, they had a public defender trying to get me to do a plea bargain. I'm like, for what? I'm not guilty of doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I stood my ground. I said, no, you know, we got to take this to a jury. I had like 4 or 5 different people, prosecutors or whatever, telling me, oh, you better take the plea bargain. Otherwise, you know, you might, if you take this to trial, you know, you can get a lot of time in jail or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, no. So I went to trial, and basically because I was in production, the whole scenario that the cop was made up, he made up a whole scenario and put it in his report. And what I did was I took and I videotaped the whole area, and I could prove that there's no way that this could happen, what he said.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just because he made mistakes in his
Mm-hmm.
report with the way certain things were
Mm-hmm.
and set up, and
Wow.
and because he says he was trying to say that he saw me make a drug deal,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and which even though there was no drugs,
Mm-hmm.
but he said he saw me make a drug deal, but there was no way. So when I was able to, I threw him off because I didn't even tell him that I was going to bring in that video.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a video and I showed the whole area, and they brought in something to play back in the courts, and they played it to the jury. And that pretty much, you know, when the jury went in, you know, there was one person on that jury that was trying to say I was guilty. So if one person, it hangs the
Right,
jury.
yeah.
But, you know, they just had to throw the case out because it was a hung jury. You know, because they didn't want to try to retry it. So
I think that's just crazy that the prosecutors are trying to get you to take a deal, and I think that happens a lot, especially for people who aren't educated or who are afraid, or maybe they have something else in their past, you know, just whatever. They feel like the best option is to take the deal, even if they know they didn't do what they're being accused of. So I think that's really sad. I think that's how they get a lot of black people in prison for stuff they didn't do.
And what a lot of black people don't know is that the public defender pretty much works with the prosecutor.
Yeah, so they're not
because
on your side.
they, you know, they're not getting paid by you; they're getting paid by the state. So, and they have cases that are done, tons of cases, so they don't even really read your case. So you have to. You have to know your rights.
So you kind of talked a little bit about the work you did in media and stuff. So I just kind of want to shift it into some of the experiences you've had working in corporate America and working around majority white people, and just if you experience any kind of prejudice or racism in that, and just tell us your story with that.
Yeah, working in corporate America is interesting because usually, depending on the company, of course, but you know, a lot of times there's a handful of black people within that company. When I was coming up, 70s, 80s, I won't say 70s, I was a little young kid then, a little baby. But in the 80s and the 90s, there's a lot of there wasn't a lot of black people in certain positions. So I found myself, when I was working for NBC, and I found myself being like the only black person in my department, or maybe one other. And I noticed that I would always raise up to a certain level, but I could never get any further up. And sometimes I would just kind of blow it off and think, well, nothing of it. But then it always happened, you know. And I know at NBC, you know, well, that's another.
Are you trying not to?
Well, no. What I was going to say is not necessarily NBC, but in corporate America, there's a thing I think with black people, or it used to be, and I hope this changes, and but you don't want to appear too black, you know. And sometimes you don't talk about race or anything. And I think that's a bad thing. I think we should talk more about race and with our coworkers, you know, white or whatever. You know, that's, you know, as it's appropriate, you know. And don't try, you know, we as black people, when we work in corporate America, we have sort of a dual personality. You know, we tend to not, like I said, not want to be too black, so we try to speak differently, just be, try to be on their level and sort of speak, yeah. And then
Which,
when you
sorry,
get home,
I'm just gonna, the fact that speaking makes you white, speaking properly makes you white, or acting a certain way makes you white, just like what we were talking about in the beginning, it just, it bothers me. But yeah, I get it. It's like you speak a certain way, and then when you get home, you can get a little ratchet, you could loosen up, like you could really be who you are,
Yeah, and you know, but I think that's because black, sometimes we think that's expected of us when we're working around, or we don't, like I said, we don't want to make them feel uncomfortable, you know, so, and that's kind of, I fell into that kind of trap, you know, and, you know, I moved over to working for NASA, JPL, and I worked with them for over 20 years, and there's, you know, I actually work as a contractor, so there's been several times when I had the opportunity to get hired, and I know both times racism played a part in that. But, you know, I usually don't let that bother me. I just keep going.
So was it like someone else got the job?
Yeah, what happened was I was told that I was going to get the job. I didn't need to do certain things because I was kind of coming in kind of back door. I already worked at a contractor. I didn't have to, you know, and they said, oh yeah. And then next thing I knew, somebody else that they brought in from the outside who was a friend of somebody got the job. So, but, you know, I try not to, like I said, let that bother me, and I just, you know, move on and keep pushing. But I know with one other thing, I know, like, a lot of times we as black people in places, positions, we don't help each other. And
it's like a competition between us.
Exactly. If there's only 2 or 3 of us in that place, it's like, well, I don't, you know, I want to make sure that I don't want to help them because they may look better than me, you know, to the white people. And, you know, so we just kind of like we don't, like I said, we don't help each other.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want them to pass us up. So I think we have to get out of that. And if we can work together and be more, you know, unified, I think it'd be a lot better.
Yeah. That's why I kind of like what I'm seeing on social media now. I'm seeing a lot of people, this isn't in corporate, but just like sharing about black owned businesses and supporting black content creators, and just it seems to be more of a community forming, and we're looking out for each other more, and we're just realizing that all of us can be successful. There's so many white people who are rich and wealthy. Why can't all us black people be rich and wealthy as well? Like, there's not only a certain amount of money available, there's a lot, and we all can have a piece of that. And just because you help someone else out doesn't mean that your business is gonna fail or your position won't be there. Like, when you do unto others, you get more in return. So helping out other people could elevate you in a different way. So I think we are kind of making that shift now, and hopefully I don't know too much about corporate America, but hopefully they're maybe starting, the black people that work there are starting to, you know, work together more, hopefully. So
yeah, I hope so too. And, you know, I know me, as, you know, as I move into my retirement, you know, I plan on, that's my goal, is to help bring up the young people, you know, teach them what I'm doing. You know, I'm starting business where they can bring them in and they can help me as I help them learn. So, that's my goal right now.
And since we're on that topic, finally, I just want to ask you to give any advice you can to specifically young Black men, but young Black people in general as well. Just advice for them growing up. And
well, the foremost important thing that I want to give advice to young Black men is to get to know God first, because once you do that, then you're going to develop integrity, you're going to develop morals, and you'll know how to do the right thing. So, you need to have your spiritual life in order. That way, like I said, you learn how to do the right thing. Of course, you need to, like I was saying before, if you're going to go into corporate America, learn how to embrace your race.
Who you are.
I won't say race, because there's only one race, the human race. But embrace, your ethnicity, your Blackness.
Where you come from.
Don't try to hide it, because that creates, it creates some kind of barrier. And you may not see it, but it does. And, it's enough that white people try to tiptoe around the subject because they don't know how to, how to have discussions. And I think if you bring it in, if you bring it up and have sensible discussions, then it educates them a lot too. Other thing, young people, just make sure you communicate with each other. Young Black men, stop bickering with each other. Stop killing each other, because that defeats the whole purpose. That's what they want. The racist white people, they want us all to kill each other out. But I think if we just learn to love each other and work together, I think a lot of things will help.
All right, wow. That was great. Thank you so much for coming on here. He was very nervous at first, but I knew he could do it. I wasn't supposed to tell him that. Sorry.
I'm used to being behind the camera.
Yeah, he's a cameraman, into production and camera work, editing, all that. And he actually will be starting a business soon. We're going to be working together on that. So look out for more information on that. But yes, thank you so much again for just sharing your experiences. I really hope that this helps somebody, even if it's just one person. So thank you. And I really hope you all enjoyed this video with my dad. If you have any of your stories that you want to share or just any comments, please make sure to leave them down below. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, share it with somebody, share it with another Black man, share it with another Black woman, just so we can, get our stories circulating. And make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more of my videos. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.